Hey guys, my name's Sam. Welcome to PrepMedic. Today we are doing one of the most requested videos I've had in the last year, and that is a full review of the SEAL Hemostatic Spray by BC3 Technologies. This is that biofoam looking canister that you're supposed to be able to put in a wound, and it's going to stop the bleeding right away. Spoiler alert, I'm a little bit disappointed. You're gonna notice on this channel, when a medical product comes out, I'm not usually the first person to jump on it. I'm not somebody that's gonna go buy into the hype train right away, because when it comes to medical devices, that has a lot of drawbacks. That has a lot of ethical considerations that are not always taken into account online by influencers, especially when money is being offered. And I've started to dive into the rabbit hole in the last several weeks of this device. And there's some surprising things and some not so surprising things that I've found. Really quick, let's talk about what SEAL is and what we can compare it to here. So SEAL is a can of aerosolized Chitosan. When it comes to hemostatic agents, you have two main agents you'll see in gauze and powders. You see Chitosan, which is a shellfish-based powder. Now it's a derivative. It's not going to cause you to have a shellfish reaction if you are allergic to shellfish. And essentially what that does is it forms this plug in the wound. It's oftentimes preferred for patients with coagulopathy, so patients that are, taking heparin or other forms of blood thinners on the market. Now you also have kaolin. Now kaolin is a clay-based, it's a mineral-based substance that actually acts on the clotting cascade itself. Both of those substances are shown to work. We know they work, and the standard of care in both forms is going to be gauze. We have impermeated gauze with these two substances that you shove into the wound, put it right next to the artery, and they've both been shown to stop bleeding slightly faster than just packing gauze itself. It's the gold standard, both sides of it. And right now, there's not a whole lot of data to suggest that one is substantially better than the other. The claims of better for coagulopathy are largely theoretical and anecdotal. So it's not nothing, but take that for what it's worth. For both products, there is kind of another format they come in that isn't gauze, that is powder, and that powder can be poured into a wound, and in theory, that's going to get next to the artery and stop the bleeding. The problem is, and why it's not gold standard, why it's not standard of care for powders anymore for about 10 years, is that as you pour that powder, if you pour it into a pool of blood in a wound, it's not gonna get next to the artery and it's not going to work. Next, if you're giving it outside or if you have rotor wash, it's very easy for that powder to be blown completely out of the wound, and there's been a bunch of reports of soldiers getting it pushed back into their eyes, which obviously is not a very pleasant experience. So they've just not been that effective, and they're not standard of care. It's not what we use anymore. We use the gauze, we use direct pressure alongside that clotting agent. So SEAL Hemostatic Spray was really meant to kind of bridge that gap there. Where powders are really fast, I don't have to spend time packing, they're just not that effective. Gauze is very effective, but it takes a lot of time. In theory, if you have a high pressure aerosolized can, you could put that in the wound, spray it, it's going to get down in the artery, and it's going to stop that bleeding very, very quickly. And I really want it to work, because I played Halo growing up. And if you did too, you look at biofoam and there's a cool factor there, right? And it's fast. If we could stop bleeding by just spraying something into a wound, that would be amazing. Nobody is questioning that. So here's the issue. SEAL's success in the last year has been based almost completely on marketing hype. If you've seen SEAL's marketing campaign, it's really good. They're leaning into the biofoam thing. They make a lot of bold claims on their website that it is 50% better than Chitosan-based agents, that it is working better than what is out there. And 50%, that's a big percentage, but we don't know a lot of things about where that number was derived. So where are these numbers coming from? There are essentially three pieces of data that they're drawing it from, and shocker, it's not all public access. So the first sets of studies were done in 2013, 2014, and this was by the US Army Institute of Surgical Research, which this one is the closest we've come to being independent. They're a trusted organization. But they looked at 3 pigs on the first study and 1 pig in the second follow-up study. So that's That's 4. That's a nothing number when it comes to a study. That might be like where you start to see if there's even a reason to continue research, but like 4 is nothing. It's hardly statistically significant in this. And in that one, they did a liver laceration model, and they put it in, they compared it against a different surgical gel, not even a Chitosan-based agent. It's not done for its stated use case, which is that external arterial or severe venous bleeding. And in that, they basically found limited and insufficient data to make any conclusion. So there was no real statistical difference one way or the other, and we have a proven gel versus SEAL being used off-label. So it's not damning. That data doesn't say it doesn't work. It's not being used in the right way. It doesn't say it even works less, but it's a very, very small sample size. And it's, again, not testing what it's supposed to. The second, I guess technically third, but basically second study that has been done on SEAL is a SEAL funded study down in Brazil, and it is not published, it is not peer reviewed, you cannot find it online. The only way you can get it is if you email the company, and they'll email you basically a marketing infographic that doesn't really tell you a lot of their methodology or what it was tested against. Now, a lot of this information is on Crisis Medicine's website. He did a great job of kind of breaking down what evidence there is and what there isn't. So credit where credit's due. I'll leave a link down below to his write-up as well. The Brazil study has tons of issues. Besides not being public, besides not being published, besides not really having a clear understanding of their methodology, it was funded by them. It was a very small sample size. So in this study, they used 16 pigs. They divided that group in half. Then they divided each of those groups in half again. So in both sides of the study, you're comparing a random Cellex agent, which we'll talk about, and SEAL. And then in those groups, you have half the pigs heparinized and then half the pigs not. And they claim that in this study, they had a 100% survival on the SEAL side and 75% survival on the random Cellex side. Now, what I have been unable to determine at this point is what SEAL was compared against. I believe it was compared to powders. It was compared to powders, and it shouldn't be compared to powders because powders are not standard of care. Gauze is, so if you're going to try to replace gauze with SEAL, you should compare it to gauze. But again, we don't know. We can't evaluate the data. It's a small sample size, and it was funded by SEAL, and the only thing you can get is that marketing infographic by them. They have also come very close to lying, if not lying outright, about how they performed this study. So they claim that they followed the US Army's Institute of Surgical Research standard for evaluating hemostatic agents, which is a 6mm puncture in the femoral artery, left to bleed for 45 seconds. And then usually the agent is applied through a pool of blood in that wound. That last part is not entirely fair because putting that hemostatic gauze through a pool of blood while it's done in the US Army Institute of Surgical Research's videos and in their studies, it's not necessarily the standard. So they're gonna get a little bit of a pass there, but I would like to see that happen because that's realistic. Your soldier's on the ground or your person's on the ground and they're pooling blood in their junctional site. A lot of times these agents are gonna be pushed through that pool of blood. So they claim they followed that standard. They did not. They blatantly did not. So they used a 4mm femoral artery laceration instead of the 6mm, and they only did 30 seconds of free bleeding instead of 45, and they did not push it through a pool of blood. All right, so future Sam here. I just want to make a couple things abundantly clear with this product. Number one, I do want it to succeed. It could be a great product. It could be working exactly as advertised, and it could be the next big thing in medicine. My point in this video is that there is not sufficient evidence to use it at this time. It does not have the right studies. It does not have big enough clinical trials to be, in my opinion, ethically used in the field. Number two with this is there are some interesting use cases as maybe an adjunctive treatment. So we know that the materials that are being used work. We know that it's not going to be harmful for the patient as far as causing some kind of weird clotting or exothermic reaction, something like that. So like I could see it maybe being implemented in the future as like, oh, we're going to spray this on really quick, then start wound packing, spray this on really quick, then start doing a tourniquet. The thing is that we just don't know if that's something that's going to work and be effective. So those are some cool hypotheticals, some things that might work. At this point in time, though, we need to look is, hey, is the 5 seconds it takes to deploy this worth the delay in tourniquet application or worth the delay in wound packing, that sort of thing. So take all of that with a grain of salt. Ultimately, you do you, but like this video is my opinion on this product. The next thing we can talk about is their FDA clearance, because they do have FDA clearance. It's important to remember that one, being FDA cleared does not mean it's effective. It means that you can market it. It means that it's probably not going to severely harm somebody. And in this case, they got basically the lowest level of FDA clearance. It's an FDA clearance that basically just had to show equivalency with other similar products on the market. In this case, they're showing it equivalent to other Chitosan powders. There's no superiority here. The FDA investigative process did not find it to be substantially better than these powders on the market or another aerosolized product that's on the market. So at best, we're looking at equal. This is FDA clearance based on 2 very small animal trials, and nothing found it to be significantly better than existing products. Not better than existing products that haven't been standard of care for 10 years, as far as we know. The last kind of nail in the coffin, at least for now, is that if you go to their website and you go to buy their SEAL first aid kit, they've got some random off-brand tourniquet being sold there. They've got some really cheap devices in there. It's being sold with 1 chest seal, and it's just half-baked. If they're an evidence-based company, they should be selling their main first aid kit on their page with a COTCCC recommended tourniquet. I don't know why they're using some off-brand knockoff. While that is not necessarily an indictment of the product itself, I think it speaks to the ability of this company to be evidence-based. And for me, it's not looking good. So none of this is to say that SEAL is dead in the water, that this product will never work, that future iterations of this technology will never work. What I am saying right now is there is insufficient evidence to use this ethically in the field. As a professional healthcare provider, I don't just take products and start using them on patients randomly to see if they work for the company and then send an anecdotal report to them. That's not how any of this works. If we do a clinical trial, which we're in one right now for a different medication regimen in flights, if we do a clinical trial, there are guardrails in place. One, the methodology is reviewed by ethics committees beforehand. They think through how they're doing it, how they're measuring the data, how they're controlling for variables. And they're constantly looking at the data that's coming in to see if we're presenting an unreasonable danger to the patients. If a benefit is really, really high in one group, or if the downsides are really, really high in one group, they will stop the study for ethical concerns early if it's that compelling. And there's none of that here. We don't have large clinical trials. We don't have independent studies. And we're getting some kind of concerning anecdotal reports of it. I can't in good faith use this product. You don't want to be on the bleeding edge of medicine. That's not your job. Maybe this works, but maybe it doesn't. And that's not a gamble you should take with your patients. That's not a gamble you should take with your family if you're stocking this in a first aid kit. So I'm gonna leave you with this. I don't like jumping on the hype train. I try not to do it on this channel. Like, I'll jump on a new backpack because I can test that ethically. I can go out and use the backpack because it's just a freaking backpack. But when it comes to medical devices, you don't need to be the guinea pig. We need innovation. We need companies to keep pushing the envelope. It's awesome. I think there is a lot of potential here, but it's half-baked. You know, it's not there yet. I'm not just gonna start eating, you know, cake batter on the kitchen table. I'm gonna wait till it's in the oven and comes out, then I'll eat that cake. But right now, I can't recommend it. I'm worried about how it's being marketed. It doesn't seem very ethical to me. And, you know, hopefully in the future, they figure some things out and we get a little bit better data. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you next week.